They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Meng. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Meng, and today is the series wrap-up for Season 5 of the Motherhood Metamorphosis, but this episode is more than that. This is the actual podcast wrap-up. This is going to be the final episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis, and I've written a bunch of notes down to help me guide this episode, but it's kind of sad, y'all. I hope I can get through this without crying, and I just really want to share some thoughts with you, some celebrations, some reflections, and where I'm headed next. So I hope you'll join me for this special episode. First, I just want to do some shout outs and stats, which I think are really fun for all of the wrap-up episodes. As of today, this is going to be the 103rd episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis, which is awesome because my big goal was 100 episodes for the podcast, and I've reached it and exceeded it. So very happy about that. There have been over 53,000 downloads since 2021, and listeners from over 164 countries from every continent have listened to this podcast. The top 10 countries, according to my stats, are the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Ireland, South Africa, Germany, India, Sweden, and the Netherlands. And it's so cool that when I scroll down through all the countries, because there's 164, that sometimes there's only like one person in this one small country that has listened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool is that one person from, a country in South America has listened to this podcast. Like, that just thrills me to think that people from all over the world have listened to this. There are over 9,000 cities that have listened in from around the world, which is awesome. And here are the top 10 according to the statistics. Lynchburg, Virginia, which makes sense because I lived there for a very long time. So shout out to my Lynchburgers. Thank you for being my top city on the podcast stats. Columbus, Ohio. Shout out to Ashley for supporting me through this whole thing because I know you're in Columbus. Los Angeles, California. Chicago, Illinois. Houston, Texas. Charlotte, North Carolina, New York, Forest, Virginia, which is basically Lynchburg adjacent, Nanaimo, British Columbia, and Denver, Colorado. So those are the top 10 cities, but there are cities from all over the world. And I'm like, who lives there? Who is listening in the Netherlands? Hey, Netherlands, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I have conducted interviews with 76 people since 2021. I want to shout out to Michaela Albertson, who came on the podcast 3 times, Sarah Springer, who came on twice, Lauren Rogers, who came on twice, Amy Kirksina, who came on twice, and Esther Getz and her daughter Sarah, who were my only double interview for the whole podcast. You guys, there have been so many amazing topics. You guys have come on and just shared your story in such amazing ways. We've talked about losing parents, eating disorders, moving forward after you get a child's diagnosis, going through breast cancer and other really, really tough health struggles, being a stay-at-home mom, being a working mom, being the main breadwinner when your spouse is a stay-at-home spouse, pregnancy, postpartum, birth trauma, finding new dreams after you've become a mom, finding your confidence and how when you just don't feel like enough, mental health, so many episodes about mental health, which is a huge passion of mine, foster care, adoption, and they're actually in season 5, we've had a lot of foster care and adoption stories, and I just love that. I love sharing stories about non-traditional ways to motherhood, and I'm so thankful for all those women who have come on and shared their stories about foster care and adoption. We've talked about IVF, having a NICU baby, infertility, secondary infertility, miscarriages, so many ways that we experience grief in motherhood, which feels like the most intense goop we've ever been in. Like that time you just feel like you're dissolving, you don't know who you are just going through this intense grief. So many stories about that, which I think is so integral to our motherhood stories. And a lot of times we don't feel like we can talk about that because we don't feel understood, we don't feel like people want to listen, or we don't have the words to express. So I'm so thankful for the women who did come on and tell their stories, because not everyone can, and I'm just super thankful for that. We talked about marriage, personality, divorce, the holidays, being a military spouse, being a military member, single motherhood, finding a hope after losing a baby to SIDS, raising teenagers, postpartum care, like getting your body back after motherhood, gender disappointment, when our kids are super sick, and how to find hope and healing after that, menstruation, sex, being student moms, reflecting and embracing our beauty and our body image issues, just all kinds of things, like being creative as a mom and finding your own thing and your own personhood during motherhood and holding on to that. So there are just so many episodes that I'm so proud of. I'm just amazed by the stories that have come on and the women that have come on to share those stories. So thank you, guys. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for listening. I want to say this, I just said this before, but I want to say it again, that not everyone can share their story because it's hard, or you don't know who's going to listen, and maybe you're not ready to tell it. Maybe it's something you've never said out loud before, but you've thought a lot about. But hearing somebody else's story and speak maybe your story out loud, there is healing in the listening, and there's also healing in the telling, because when we speak our stories and we listen to the stories of others, there is just this connection. Even if it's over media, it's podcasting, it's through our phones, like there is connection there. And I think that can provide a light to our paths when they feel dark, and they can provide healing to our hearts. Maybe even when we didn't know we needed healing, but when we would listen to someone's story, we were like, wow, that spoke to me, and that provides healing and hope. So this is the final episode for the Motherhood Metamorphosis Podcast. It's been an absolute wonderful journey since 2021. This podcast helped give me purpose. It's taught me so many things. I did not know how to podcast, you guys. Like, I took my microphone out of the box and I was like, what do I do with this? Like, where do I even plug it in on my computer? But the podcast has pushed me to learn brand new technology. I've watched so many YouTube videos, like trying to figure out like how to podcast. Like, you type that into the search bar. That was me. And podcasting has just helped me learn tenacity and dedication, especially when I wanted to quit. But my big podcast goal was 100 episodes, and I've reached that goal, so hooray, I'm so excited. But after reaching this goal, I am ready to close the door on this chapter. Podcasting is hard. It's hard to do well, and I'm a person who's committed to excellence. And I've learned that when you're committed to excellence, you get tired. I've taken lots of breaks over the last 3 years, if you've been listening since 2021. 5-month breaks, a 9-month break, and that was really good. It was good to take breaks. But all of the social media and promotion and lack of interaction and editing and scheduling and all the behind the scenes stuff is just really exhausting. So I'm so proud of what I've done, but I'm also ready to move on to my next chapter. So a little bit about me behind the scenes. Right now, I'm in a waiting place. I applied to a master's program in clinical mental health counseling, and I'm waiting to hear if I made it through to the next round. If I get an acceptance letter and I get through a personal and a group interview in February, I'll start a 2-year program in June. So I thought about waiting to record this episode until I knew more, but I thought, isn't the anticipation and waiting and wondering and hoping for good things just like the motherhood journey? There's so much in motherhood that we just don't know. We anticipate and we hope and we dream, and then we live out the reality. And so often it looks different from what we thought our lives would look like. So I'm in the dreaming stage, and I'm hoping for so many good things as I anticipate this new career and life goals for myself. But I just don't know. I wanted to read you an essay I wrote for my application. I think it encompasses so many of the dreams that I want to carry forward with me that were born and grew with the podcast. If we sat down to coffee and you asked me, who are you? I might say I'm a wife, a mother of 5, a military spouse, a homemaker, and a once upon a time writing instructor at a university. But at my core, I'm a story keeper, one who weaves stories, one who treasures the stories of others. Writing has long been my chosen medium for self-awareness and self-reflection. The idea of self-awareness played a large role in my writing of my master's thesis for my English degree, when I explored the enduring Austen heroine, self-awareness and moral maturity in Jane Austen's Emma and in modern Austen fanfiction. Man, that's a mouthful. In my thesis, I argued that Emma Woodhouse's personal growth only begins when she learns self-awareness through her foibles in friendship and love. And it is through this reflection that she experiences personal and relational growth. My thesis, written as a young woman in my mid-20s, was only the beginning of my journey to explore the importance that personal reflection has played in my own life. After grad school, as a mom to twin 3-year-old boys, I found writing and reflection to be a key influence in understanding my mind, heart, motivations, and the ways I needed to grow. As a blogger, sharing my writing with others has provided a two-way street into reflection and connection. My readers have connected with my stories of mothering children with autism and ADHD, my own struggles with anxiety, depression, loneliness, and loss, and have in turn shared their own stories with me. Together, the connection between reader and writer, between written word and spoken stories, has created fertile ground for personal growth and change, both in me and in my readers. My desire to understand my neurodiverse children's unique needs pushed me deep into research, using skills I honed in graduate school to discover how their minds work, how I can help their sensory needs, how I can support the depression and anxiety that often coexist with autism and ADHD, and how, in the middle of intense parenting, I can show up as my best self as a woman and mother. Struggles with my own mental health through challenging parenting and living the military lifestyle has given me a deep desire to not only help myself thrive in difficult circumstances, but also to help other women who may be struggling in similar situations. My podcast, The Motherhood Metamorphosis, was born out of this curiosity and compassion. Although I didn't know the term matrescence at the start of my podcast, the idea of transformation and growth through motherhood, like a caterpillar dissolving into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly, has driven my desire to share the stories of women's struggles, grief, growth, and joy in their motherhood journeys. I have conducted almost 100 interviews since 2021. A full list of my podcast guests and topics, as a testament to the diversity and passion I hold for this work, can be found in my Vita. Okay, side note here, this is not in the essay. But you guys, when I copied out every single episode that I had written, that I had conducted, into my resume, or my Vita, which is like the academic version of a resume, it went on for like 5 pages, and it was single space. And I was like, dang, that is a lot. That is a lot of podcast episodes. And I was just like super proud to see it all written down. Okay, we're back to the essay. Through my own writing experience and podcast, I've clearly seen how the act of telling our stories and listening to the raw, lived, real experiences of others can bring healing and hope. I've learned that stories can only be healed by love once they are brought into the light. There is a sacredness in the telling, in the listening, and in the space between the storyteller and the story listener. In addition to my podcast and writing, I've also been a care group facilitator in a nonprofit organization called the Motherhood Collective in Lynchburg, Virginia. As a co-leader of the care group, I sat with women twice a month as they shared their stories of miscarriage, stillbirth, child loss, and infertility. I greatly value the 2 years I co-led this group. I experienced support and healing from my own miscarriage and learned to be a better listener, ask more sensitive questions, and open my heart and mind to experiences I had not personally walked through. Later, I became a board member for the Motherhood Collective, acting as secretary for a year before we moved due to my husband's military career. I see pursuing a degree in clinical mental health counseling as an extension of the work I already value and love in storytelling, deep listening, and holding space for the grief, pain, and growth of women. Because of my own motherhood experiences, I have a deep desire to help women through their own matrescence journeys, both at the beginning of motherhood, because that transition can be so hard, and for all the life-altering transitions that raising children and raising ourselves brings. I have a vision of one day being a part of a practice that has childcare on site so that women don't face a barrier of paying for a babysitter before they can get support for their mental health. I have a vision of kneading bread and making soup while I talk with a client about postpartum depression or the life-altering news of an autism diagnosis. When our session ends, the mother can pick up her child from the nursery and take home the dinner we made so she has one less thing to think about that day. I love to be a part of a practice where women can take yoga classes, spend their counseling sessions gardening while they soak up vitamin D, walk with a therapist on a brisk winter day with tissues in her pocket for those persistent healing tears, and take a nap in a designated nap room for the last 30 minutes of her session. I want to help women thrive in unique and unexpected ways so they can feel seen, heard, and held in their unique and unexpected motherhood and womanhood stories. Although I taught writing and literature for several years after I earned my MA in English, I have been a stay-at-home mom since my son was diagnosed with autism in 2016. In the years that followed, the life, work, and friendships I built online became a lifeline for me, especially through international moves and the pandemic. We have moved 4 times in 7 years, with our most recent move bringing us to Colorado Springs in June of 2024. Although the social support I built online has saved me, the idea of attending a graduate program in person has me thrilled with anticipation. There is no underestimating the importance and sacredness of in-person learning, community, and friendship. Now that all my children are in school, can I get an amen? I am excited to step into a new chapter of my life as a woman, furthering my dreams and goals of pursuing a degree in counseling, continuing the sacred journey of storytelling, deep listening, healing, and hope. So I don't know what the future holds for me with this degree, but I'm crossing my fingers for lots of good change in 2025. It's going to be hard too, especially with our military lifestyle and parenting the kids with all of their extra needs. Plus, my oldest 2 are going to be seniors, so I don't even know what that transition is going to look like, but I don't know. I think that we don't have to give up pursuing our dreams just because our kids are going through big stuff too. I think there's seasons for that though, but I'm excited that this may be a season that can hold both those things. I think I'm also at a stage in my life, hello 40, where I think I'll regret the chances that I didn't take and the choices that I didn't make more than the decisions I've already made in my life. So I'm trying to just lean into that where I'm like, what do I want the second half of my life to be? Like, what do I want my life to look at? Like, what goals do I want to have pursued? And I think this is it. This is something I've been thinking about for a really long time. So I am going for it. I'm really excited about this possibility of this program because, like I said in my essay, it's in person and not online. I've lived so much of my life online in the last 6 to 7 years, and I'm just excited for the possibility of building in-person community again. And hopefully, in 2 years or maybe more, I'll be a licensed mental health counselor, listening and supporting women and families through their own personal metamorphosis journeys. If you've been a listener for just a little while on this podcast, I'm so glad you're here. If you've been along for this journey since the beginning, thank you for being so supportive. Special shout out here to Sarah Rogers for being such a consistent financial supporter. I wish we could have coffee in person, Sarah, but we're so dang far away. And thank you also to Sabrina Deal, who blew my mind when she gifted me $200 for the podcast this season. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and your generosity, Sabrina. My plans for the podcast are to keep paying for hosting fees for another 4 to 6 months. So all the podcasts will still be available on all the podcast apps. However, once I stop paying for monthly hosting, the episodes will disappear after 90 days. Sad, right? I want to upload all the audio files to YouTube, though, so the stories won't be lost and people can still find them and share them, especially for guests who came on who want to share their stories in the future. I do need to figure that out, though, because YouTube is a medium that I haven't done yet. So, hooray for figuring out new technology, right? Well, I think this is it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. I hope you will continue to listen and share your favorite episodes from the podcast with women who are going through their own metamorphosis stories. Thank you, dear listeners, for these last 3 years. Motherhood is hard, but it's also beautiful. Keep being brave and strong, leaning into love, acceptance, and grace as you live out your own unique motherhood and womanhood story. And always remember that your children's growth matters, but yours does too.